Good morning, everyone. Today is Friday, November the 30th. This is the last trading day of the month. The reason that I say that is because traders sometimes have to report their P&L at the end of the month, and things can get whippy, particularly in the indices. So what are we seeing? We're seeing the pivot, the point of control, as it were, for last week being right around here, 2736. Yesterday, we had a ton of motion around 2732 as being a significant buying point. It faded a couple of times and then really broke off to the upside here. So we're going to be looking at that edge again. What are we seeing? We're seeing a failure to hold higher. We are seeing the lows still sort of hold, and this morning we have higher lows relative to this motion here in the space. And so what we are expecting is sideways action. Now, we've got slope that's generally up, flattening SMIs, and so that tells us that our pullbacks are first going to meet buyers. And they've met buyers over and over again. We've got the same flattening action, same behavior, so we must assume the same. That includes upside pressure. Now, I suspect what we do is fade because we might be forming this pocket over here based on this space. But there's no signal of that until we actually lose this line and begin to trade beneath it. We're not doing that yet. All right, so that's what we have to watch. We can see the levels clearly marked on the space. I don't really expect this to move higher today. However, if we do, there's a volume pocket that goes all the way up into 2768. All right, let's take a look at the NQ. Same sort of thing, volume pocket, low volume area usually ends up being some sort of suction event, but we're building these higher lows just as we did yesterday before it broke out and up through the space, right? We stayed in that region. We've got opposing tails here, and that tells us that the market is mixed, flat to upside moving averages, meaning that our pullbacks will be buy zones, flat SMI that begins sideways motion in the space, failed breakdowns, positive retests. That's what we need to look at for continuation. Big frontline expansions, very likely to bring in the same kind of rejection motion. So watch that edge. For the YM, same sort of thing. Hope you guys like my bigger mouse. Um, Pops up into the resistance zone. Here is a big area of resistance that got pressed through and then rejected again. I tweeted about this yesterday. I said, hey, listen, you know what? We are doing this under weak motion, and that's going to give us a likelihood of a collapse into a fade and that coming into support. We are still seeing support action in general, sideways spaces, failed breakdowns. We need to get underneath this moving average. This is an adaptive average that sort of flattens out when we're about to change direction. And you can see it that it did it here and it did it here, but there's always a little bit of a mess sitting right through the edge. So you want to be careful for that. Taking a look at oil, it did not break through the lower edge that we saw yesterday morning. It came up into the resistance zone and pulled back. Remember what I said about these kinds of volume parameters. They tend to make very whipsaw trading spaces when they're nice and clean. That means everybody's trading all around the spaces. What should we do? Well, we shouldn't lose 50.27. And so let's create an alert. We shouldn't really lose that region if we're going to break down. So we want to watch for a failed retest. Notice it faded. So if you're looking at a very tight time frame, it certainly could take you a bit lower, but there is going to be a bounce sitting on the edge of that. And you want to look for that failed bounce that takes you lower. My thought is this is the same motion. Nothing has changed in terms of momentum. Nothing has changed in terms of trend. It's all flattening. This is still lifting. It still tells me buyers are below. Let's take a look at gold finally. Gold continues to fade. Dollar sort of flattening out a little bit as well. What are we looking at? Bounce zones at around 1225. Why? Well, a lot of reasons, mostly support action sitting there. And all of this is price rejection until we fade and lose it. And then we'll collapse into the next space of price acceptance, which is sitting in the stronger areas of volume. So that's really what you want to watch. What is the slope of the landscape? Flat to up. So pullbacks are going to be buy zones at the first pass. This is an undercurrent that's moving up. But overall, we're sitting in a place where our big price acceptance area is around 1230. And that zone we've simply got to breach to engage in more buying power. Otherwise, old support is going to become new resistance. All right. Good luck trading today in the last day of November. This has been the Futures in 5.